So we're talking about the LGBTQ Real Estate Alliance. It was founded 2 years ago in June of 2020. What is the Alliance? What does it do? And what's the mission?
Yeah, so thank you, Christy, for having me this morning. It's a pleasure to be with Connecticut, one of the most beautiful states, in my opinion, in the Union. I love spending time there. I wish we could do this in person. So, the Alliance, as you said, was founded. Our technical birthday is June 23rd, 2020. That's when the IRS gave us our 501c6 status. But we actually started in early June and started to get the foundation and the groundwork in place. We, being a group of about 56 volunteers from all over the country, who were affiliated with a past organization that kind of filled this footprint for the LGBTQ community and all things housing and real estate. Unfortunately, that organization had a boatload of turmoil that folks can read all about in Inman. Inman did a great job at all the juicy Bravo TV details. But as a result of that staff and board of directors, the chapter program, we all made the choice to walk away from that organization, and it has since been kind of crumbled, unfortunately. A lot of good things happened over there, and we took that energy because we thought it was too important to just kind of throw our hands up and quit, and we turned it into the Alliance. And literally, like a phoenix from the ashes, that's how the Alliance was born. We are very comparable. I don't want to say the same because we have differences as what we call the other families. They're the big four families in real estate. So NAREP, the Hispanic Association, ARIA, the Asian Association, and then NAREB, which is the Historically Black Association of Realtors. And we're all partners with NAR, the National Association, and we work specifically at the Alliance at focusing on the LGBTQ plus community. So we have four pillars here at the Alliance: education, philanthropy, advocacy, and then I call it membership ROI because I'm very comparable to an AE in my role, but it's really membership development and professional development. And so let me just run through those quick. Our education platform is based around the concept that to totally defeat discrimination, it's going to come through hearts and minds, right? And what better way to do that than to provide education and get rid of misconceptions or stereotypes, stigmas that exist about the community. So we've created a proprietary Alliance Certified Ally program that we've deployed now for about a year and a half. We've certified over 700 realtors between Canada and the United States as certified allies. And I call it, my membership and education director doesn't like this, but I call it our LGBTQ 101 cultural competency courses. And that's really what it is. It's about a 90-minute run, and he'll tell you, the instructor will tell you, it's Vegas rules. So we're not recording it if it's virtual. Nothing leaves the room if it's in person. And it relies very heavily on personal experience. So we invite folks to share their experience with the community, whether that's a child that they might have who belongs to the community, or a neighbor or a friend, or maybe they have no interaction at all. Maybe they're coming from a place where they've just never had an experience with someone from the community. And that has created some kind of barrier for them. But it's aimed at really going over all the things that just, I'd say in the last 5 years to a decade, have kind of started flashing up on everyone's radar, like pronouns and different vocabulary words like cisgender. It takes a deep dive into all of that and really explains it, breaks it down, and puts it into human terms so everyone can understand what those things mean. It's been very effective, and we've gotten incredible feedback. And we truly believe that it's through the process of creating allies that we're going to foster a more equitable space in real estate and finance, really for that matter, for the LGBTQ plus community. That directly correlates to our advocacy platform. And in 29 states today, it is legal to discriminate against LGBTQ folks in every aspect of the housing process. So that is to say, if my husband and I were to buy a home and the sellers found out that we were a gay couple, in 29 states today, they could shred that purchase contract at the table for no other reason. I could be charged 6% higher on my interest rate. I could be denied rent or inflated rental prices at a certain building that has even rent protection in place. I could be denied shelter if I was homeless because of my affiliation. So we have a lot of work to do as it stands with equal rights protection. And we think, again, it's through education that we're going to help break some of those barriers. But advocacy work is critically important too. The Equality Act is a piece of legislation that we've been lobbying hard for, along with our friends at NAR and actually at CREA, the Canadian Real Estate Association. because they don't have protections in Canada either, believe it or not. And the Equality Act is a piece of American legislation that's been circling Congress since the 70s. It's never gotten its day for a vote in the Senate, unfortunately. President Biden has committed to signing that, should it advance to that point, but it would create protected class status for sexual orientation and gender identity. Currently, that doesn't exist as federal law is outlined. So the president did, and let me just back up here. On January 21st, shortly after his inauguration, the president did sign an executive order that classified those two categories under the protected class of sex in the equal opportunities language. So we have temporary protection, which I call is a Band-Aid with an expiration date. We all know how fast executive orders can be overturned. We've all lived through it in the last 6-7 years. So this piece of legislation would enact permanent protections for our community. That's relevant to what we do because the home ownership rate in our community is 49% versus the standard American home ownership rate of 65% or the straight Caucasian home ownership rate of 74%. So there is a disparity there and there's room for growth. We think that that number is the way it is for a lot of reasons, but discrimination is definitely one of the more prominent reasons. Our philanthropy stance is fairly simple. As a C6 organization, we're member focused. We're not focused on charity necessarily. That's not what we do. That's not what we signed up for. But we are here to enable the charities that currently exist that are doing a great job to get more resources and have a wider reach. And that's really what we focus on. We partner with the Trevor Project and with PFLAG to make sure that we're continuing to give our fair share of resources from the Alliance to enable the wonderful charitable work that those two organizations already do across the country to do even more. And then, as I said, membership development and professional development is our last of the four. And that's really focused around making sure that our members have a good experience at the Alliance. Just like a gym, if membership doesn't see value, they're not going to renew, right? So we want to make sure that all of our members see the value, not just with their big hearts or their passion for activism, but in their wallets and in their business. So one of the things that we offer that's different from the other associations, our sister associations, is an online directory of all of our professional members. And this is an international directory, actually, where consumers can go in and type in a location that they're looking for help, and it will generate a list of all of the members we have in that area. There are 32 different professions that a consumer can choose from, be it a realtor or a lawyer, a photographer, a CPA, title or mortgage. And they can select the individuals that they want to work with. Now, these folks are all either part of the community or allies to the community. So while we come close to guaranteeing a very positive, equitable experience, we have a code of ethics and everything just like NAR does. Certainly it offers a starting point for folks in the community to at least understand that now they're working with someone who gets the community a little bit better. So our referral network and our consumer lead network are very strong, and we have a lot of members that see a lot of return annually off of that investment. And then obviously our chapter program, another great enrichment opportunity. We've got 42 chapters around 33 states right now that are actively holding events. This is everything from happy hours and cocktail events where you can exchange business cards and referral information with someone in your field, education events or consumer-facing events. Our Minnesota chapter just held a wonderful homebuyer fair, actually in conjunction with the other three segments, and they had over 1,000 people attend that event, consumers. So we do a lot at the Alliance to make sure that we're staying well-rounded and everyone's happy at the end of the day to the best that we're able to provide. But that's kind of in a nutshell what we do.
Just in a nutshell, wrap it all up, just a little bit of work going on. You talk a little bit about that professional directory and how important is it for somebody to be able to go in and say, I'm looking for a realtor, I'm looking for a photographer, I'm looking for an attorney, whatever the case may be, that resource is available there.
Yeah, well, if you think about it, if from a consumer stance, and I know we've been in the industry for so long that sometimes we forget what that process is like, but where do you start? If you're a first-time home buyer who's been renting for 10 years and you want to roll over or even start looking at home ownership, where do you start? Well, you're probably going to land on Zillow or Realtor.com or something like that because they're the ones that advertise the instant home prices, right? And that's just what you register immediately as a consumer. This offers another opportunity that's completely neutral from any one brand. As a nonprofit, that's our obligation. And we give folks equal access to dozens of brand representatives through the members that are in our organization. So it's impartial, but it also gives them the added assurance that who they're working with is going to be more empathetic to the fact that they're part of the LGBTQ plus community, and hopefully more understanding and equitable in the experience that they're providing their clients. So that does matter, believe it or not. One of the studies that we held in April of 2021 showed that perceived discrimination is actually a larger barrier to home ownership than actual discrimination in our community. So that's another one of those things that explains the low home ownership rate. So we truly believe that if we offer and are successfully able to market that we have this directory in place, that consumers are going to take advantage of it. And last year we had over, I think, 1.1 million unique visits to the directory in our first year of existence. So it's effective, it's there, and it's being utilized. I think folks are seeing a return off of it. And I know for a fact that our consumers that are using that resource are happy because we're getting wonderful feedback constantly.
You've used the word ally a number of times in describing that. What does it mean to be an ally to the LGBTQ plus community in terms of real estate?
So one of the greatest questions I get, and I say greatest because I love answering it, do I have to be gay to be part of the organization? No, just a big flat no, right? And I used gay obviously because 30 years ago they just referred to it as the gay community before we started to get into the intersectionality. But allies are straight folks or members of the community who lend their support even though they're not a part of that specific demographic, right? So I say members of the community because within that acronym, which is actually 12 letters long if you spell the whole thing out, I can be an ally to my trans brothers and sisters out there too. That's an experience that I will never have, that I do not understand on a personal basis. My understanding and my acumen is up to speed, but walk a mile in someone else's shoes. I'll never be able to live that life, but I can be an ally to that community. I can provide support emotionally and in person. I can provide resources, and I can stick up for folks in that community when I see harassment or discrimination occurring. That's very comparable, and that transcends any of the letters. We actually have that plus on our name, the LGBTQ plus. That plus does obviously represent the other letters that aren't mentioned, but it also represents allies. And allies compose 22% of our membership right now at the Alliance on a national basis. So any minority cause that's ever had progress has folks who do not identify as part of that community standing lockstep and pushing progress forward. You look at the civil rights movements in the 50s and 60s, the front lines oftentimes had white folks or Latino folks that were walking lockstep with the Black community to try and get civil rights action. This is no different than that. Delayed about 60 years, but no different. So when we say allies, it's not unique to our community. We probably use that word more than other minority communities, but every community that isn't mainstream has a group of allies, and those are simply folks that support that community, even though they don't necessarily affiliate with it.
You also touched about the partnership with NAR, and that was announced about a year ago. How impactful or important was it to have that partnership kind of put in the headlines and the press releases so that it's out there and you say, we're with them?
Yeah, that was everything. And I am not British, and I visited England, but in my mind, this is equal to the Queen of England knighting you, right? That's kind of what it was for us. And you have to understand, we came from, I'll just say it, we came from a shady place, Christy, and unfortunately, the damage that hadn't been done in the former organization, it transcended boundaries, and it was the affiliation and the connotation was carried forward by some of the sponsors and partners in the industry who used to back our segment. So we've had a lot of proving to do, and NAR was very methodical in how they approached it, and we had dialogue from the very get-go. In fact, Fred Underwood, the former director of diversity for NAR, was very instrumental in coaching me on how to build the alliance and how to make sure that we were doing the right things at the right times. So NAR has always been a part of the ethos of our organization. We don't agree with everything that they do, and certainly our pack is controversial, and we acknowledge that. But I can tell you that they're actively at the table with us, listening to our concerns, and they're actively pushing for equal rights legislation to get through Congress. So they are an ally in that sense. Now, we have a lot of work to do together, and certainly real estate, realtors, the profession is far from perfect. But with 1.6 million people, you're going to see that, right? So we, I would say, help push each other along, and we check and balance each other. Having the not just the acceptance, but the active participation and support from NAR has made all the difference. It's fostered relationships with other associations, like the Connecticut Association, with folks that we normally wouldn't have access to reaching just through our marketing efforts, who have said, well, wow, I didn't realize something like that existed out there. And it's given us the opportunity to get in front of our peers who maybe represent a different segment. The Women's Council is a great example. They just wrote a phenomenal op-ed that they published on their website for Pride. It was a complete shock, gushing all about the alliance. It was incredibly flattering. But that relationship wouldn't have formed without that first step from NAR. So I don't want to say that it solidified our legitimacy, but it definitely went miles in assuring the rest of the folks out there that were watching us that we meant business and that we weren't going anywhere. So my continued gratitude to our friends at NAR. We're actually going through the renewal cycle right now on that partnership, and I'm hoping to have that signed by the end of the day today. So onward.
Is there any particular goal for this year? I mean, you've done a lot in 2 years already. What's the next step? Where do you hope to take things? I mean, if you could accomplish one thing this year, what would that one thing be?
Well, 6 months into it, I mean, if I told you that I didn't have my strategic priorities in place, my board would be coming down my throat right now. But, I'd like to end the year at 3,000 members, and we're at 2,500 right now. We've gained almost 500 members, which tells me we're on the right path. I think it's very possible to do. I know that the numbers are out there, and NAR says, based on their numbers, that about 12% of all realtor members identify as something other than straight. So 12% of 1.6 million is an awfully large number still. So I know that we have the opportunity to do it. And it's through interviews, it's through discussions, it's through sit downs like this one with you, that we're able to touch more people and really make sure that we're getting our name out there so folks know that we exist, because we are only 2 years old. And with the market in the last 2 years, a lot of folks have just had their head down and have been working their tails off just to keep up with everything. In a perfect world, I would tell you that we'll continue to push for the Equality Act. We worked very close with our friends at HRC, the Human Rights Campaign, as well as NAR. Shannon McGann and her team are absolutely incredible. But we're so far into the year right now, I honestly don't see the Equality Act coming out of committee in the Senate to get a vote, unfortunately. But that's not to say that we're not going to rally the troops and come back at it next year with the next congressional session. I would love to see us have 1,000 certified allies in the realtor ranks by the end of this year. So those are my two goals: growing our organization and continuing to further our progress on our education campaign.
You've talked a lot about obviously the rewarding aspects and the positives and the good that has come out of what the Alliance has already been able to do. Also kind of touched on the disheartening aspects, the fact that I think you said 29 states, sexual orientation is not a protected class. Connecticut is one of those states that does protect it. So our members are fortunate and our consumers are fortunate in that sense. But what is kind of the most disheartening thing when it comes to education, when it comes to the outreach and dealing with people?
Yeah, I don't think I have to tell anyone that right now we're going through a turbulent time in socio-political and socioeconomic discrepancies in society, right? More than ever, an overwhelming portion of the population supports the LGBTQ community. We see that in polls that are being done, even by conservative channels. I think Fox News partnered with Gallup almost a year ago now and came out with a poll that said 72% of Americans support same-sex marriage. It's hard to argue with that. At the same time, we have over 300 pieces of legislation that are anti-LGBTQ moving through state houses right now, which is alarming. I know Florida got a lot of focus with Don't Say Gay and the battle that ensued with Disney and is still going on. There are 13 states around the country that are trying to pass similar legislation that aren't getting headlines. That's a reality. I mean, that's something that we have to face. And unfortunately, every time I have a dialogue like this or on a panel with my peers, I am very, very candidly say, hey, I think it's great that we're all pushing for higher home ownership, but we're 50 years behind the rest of our peers. We're still fighting for the right to be able to own homes, not just increase our home ownership rate, but have the right to just buy a house in 29 states in 2022. So the frustrating part of it is, as progressive as I would say the last 10 years have been in advancing equality. And by the way, that was cornerstone with the two major Supreme Court rulings, Obergefell in 2015, which did legalize same-sex marriage, and then Bostock in 2020, which prohibited discrimination in the workplace. There's still a lot of noise out there, and we look at states like Texas. I should say we look at governments like in the state of Texas or the state of Florida, and it doesn't make sense, right? It doesn't make sense because the LGBTQ community, and these are hard numbers, has $1.2 trillion, trillion with a T, in purchase potential in this country. The American LGBTQ economy, $1.2 trillion of purchase potential. That's larger than the GDPs of Canada, Australia, and South Korea combined. We accounted for 12% of all home purchases last year, according to Zillow. So we have the business case is in front of everyone on what we can do to the economy or what we cannot do to the economy if we want to start showing our politics through our wallets, so to speak. So the political side of what we're fighting right now has become increasingly more and more frustrating. I think, and I hope, that is an ebb and flow, just like everything else we've seen. If you look at a 50-year chunk of history, there's always the ebbs and flows. And I hope that we're just going through that right now. I hate saying common sense, but I hope that human nature prevails. And I really hope that folks understand that LGBTQ people are no different than the rest of society. We have the same wants, needs, and desires, right? Safety, shelter, encouragement. So we're here and, we want to be treated equally just like everyone else does.
Let's talk about your conference. It's coming up in September. You do an annual conference. It's in Las Vegas. What's the sales pitch to get people to either attend or participate or look into it?
Well, what are you looking for? I guess that's my first question, because if you're looking for something big, we've got it. We've got it in the entertainment lineup, which, still blows my mind as far as the LGBTQ community is concerned. We've got Carson Kressley, who Queer Eye for the Straight Guy, and some of his more recent work, he's a judge on RuPaul's Drag Race, and I'd say honeymoons as an MC for a lot of parades now. I think he just emceed the Thanksgiving Day parade. But Carson Kressley is actually our celebrity MC for this event for the next several years. So folks that attend are going to get some very real face-to-face time with Carson. We've got amazing entertainment lined up. Shan Carr, the hilarious comedian from Palm Springs, who's also a realtor, by the way. She's going to be doing a stand-up act one of the nights. The legendary dance artist Christine W. actually ranks higher than Jennifer Lopez on the charts for dance music. She's going to be performing on Friday night at our last night gala. And then for folks who are familiar with FX's show Pose, Dominique Jackson, a brilliant, beautiful Black trans woman, is going to be delivering a cultural keynote speech on Friday. She was just at HRC for their gala, actually, delivered I actually watched virtually and I teared up. So we're excited about I don't want to say novelty, but the entertainment side of it. The business side of it, it's geared 100% towards Mastermind. It's going to be very TED Talk in style. And we have the C-levels from a lot of different organizations. Keller Williams, we've got Ryan Gorman joining us from Coldwell Banker. Jason Guessing from EXP is going to be on stage. We've got some amazing folks from the industry. But more than that, we have an amazing, I would say, high intensity, low time commitment breakout series over 2 days that folks are going to be able to focus on the specific area of real estate or the industry that they're interested in and go through a series of pretty empowering courses that we're wrapping up into our breakout series. So our full schedule hopefully is going to be published either the end of this week or Monday of next week. I'm dragging my feet a little bit, and my staff just keeps coming after me. I have to get in there and approve the whole thing, but I just saw the final full schedule and I'm impressed. For our first live event, it will deliver, and it's at the beautiful Resorts World, I would say Palace in Las Vegas, the newest resort on the Strip towards downtown. It's where the Stardust used to stand, if you know the Strip at all, right across from the Wynn. And it's absolutely beautiful. It's the largest and most expensive project in Las Vegas. So we're excited for a first year. Well, hopefully first year, right? We thought last year was going to be the first year too. We're excited for the show. We've already started selling. Early bird tickets are on sale for a very large discount. And I would encourage folks that are interested to check out the website, realestatealliance.org. There's a link right to the conference landing page where you can find full details.
And obviously that is open to anyone, right?
It is members, non-members, allies, folks that are just interested. In fact, we are deploying our Alliance Certified Ally course on the Wednesday, September 27th, no, 28th, beg my pardon, right before the welcome reception. So I think it runs from 3 to 5. It's live in person at Resorts World. Anyone that's local to the Las Vegas market. In fact, I know some folks from Reno that are driving in for it. But it's a great preview, and you can buy conference registration on site if you'd like. If it's something that you're just considering, you want to, put your toe in the water with this course to see if it's worth your time. I have a bias, but I think it is worth your time. And we welcome anyone from across, really across the world. I know that we have folks coming in from various countries to attend this too, to participate. And it's not just the conference, right? It's not just the amazing entertainment and education and the food, because I've gotten to test the food at the resort. It's the camaraderie, and it's the bond that you're creating with the folks in the segment that you otherwise wouldn't meet. And I can't tell you how much this experience, these live conferences, enhance referral business for agents who attend them.
You did mention the Alliance website in general. Obviously, I assume that that's a place that if our members are interested in learning more, they can go there and check it all out and see how they can get involved if they want to.
Absolutely. Yep. They certainly can. We update that thing probably twice a day with new information or take down old information. Info@realestatealliance.org is also a great resource. If you have a specific question about something, please feel free to shoot an email. I have a fabulous director of membership experience, Alex Cruz. His full-time occupation with the Alliance is to make sure that he's working with potential members and existing members to keep everyone happy, so to speak. And as you can imagine, with 2,500 members, it's always a job. You can't please everyone, but we try.
Kind of segueing to that, is there any sort of quote or mission? I mean, you have a very positive energy about you, and I'm sure that's always tough to try to maintain, but what drives your passion for change?
I am just a staunch, I would say, pupil of Brene Brown and Brene Brown's leadership mantra. And she has a quote specific that folks that follow her would recognize, but and pardon my French, but if you're not in the arena getting your ass kicked with me, I'm not interested in your feedback. And that is my leadership style. That's how I manage our organization. I welcome feedback. I welcome critical and constructive feedback from folks who are willing to get their hands dirty and help us find solutions. And I've always had that mantra, but I think Brene Brown was able to put it to words that I couldn't necessarily find.
Ryan, is there anything else you'd like to ask that you'd like to share with our members here in Connecticut?
It's a pleasure to be here. I had time earlier this spring to be with the Eastern Connecticut Association. What a treat. I think too often when we're talking about diverse segments, we exclude portions of the country from the dialogue. And my time on the ground with that association and my time in Connecticut as a tourist tells me that those are really the areas that we need to talk about. We need to continue to bring the message across the country, and we shouldn't exclude any part of the country. So I am so thankful to you, Christy, for having me on, because Connecticut has a warm spot in my heart. And I hope that we can continue to work with your association and the various regionals throughout the Northeast and hopefully have a larger impact.
Ryan, I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Happy Pride.